Let's talk about Nottingham Forest. Good point against Chelsea. I think they actually played well and were deserving of a point as well in that game. Obviously, look, Nottingham Forest in the summer spent quite a lot of money and quite a lot of players. I think 23 players came into the club, which is incredible when you think about it. One player, though, looks like he will be leaving. It just hasn't worked out for this player at all. Is Emmanuel Dennis. Obviously came in for 15 million from Watford. Just hasn't worked. He's only played a handful of games. I think he just scored a goal. It's just not worked, has it? And I guess, look, we're going to talk about Emmanuel Dennis, but I guess we could literally copy and paste that about a number of those Forest players. Like, how many have actually worked when you can say, you know what, this has actually done exactly what I said it will do?
Very few. But it's no surprise in the case of Emmanuel Dennis, and it amazes me that the lack of diligence that these football clubs do, because everybody from any walk of life, you know, whether you're involved in football or you're the postman, everybody knew Emmanuel Dennis was a bad egg at Watford. Just pick up the phone and ask Roy Hodgson and he would tell you some horror stories. So why Forest thought it would be any different if they signed him is staggering, quite frankly. So it doesn't surprise me that it's not worked out for him. Doesn't surprise me that it's not worked out for Jesse Lingard. If we're talking about apologies, Sam Matterface, who was sat in that chair, owes me a big apology because he was telling me what a good signing Jesse Lingard would be for Nottingham Forest. I was not having that at all. Yeah, a one-year contract, big money, turned down a return to West Ham, which for me would have been the better move in terms of his career. And he's flopped at Forest. There's no two ways about it. And you can count the number of signings they made that have actually impressed on one hand. And when you sign 23 players and only a handful of them work out, you're going to be in trouble. And I still think Forest are bang in trouble. The owner has come out and said they're going to sign yet more players in January. Just let Steve Cooper get on with the coaching. Just stop giving him these players because it just makes his job impossible.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, you've played the game, obviously, and you played it at a high level, Kev. How strange is it to see so many players coming in all at once, especially for the players that are there existing? Like, what's it like?
Very strange. I think because Nottingham Forest haven't been in the top flight for such a long time, there was a mark of desperation to get bodies in and to get quality bodies. That's why you would take a chance on a Dennis, as it were, even if his reputation was so bad. Even because everybody thinks if I can get him in my building,
every manager thinks that. Don't
they? I
but,
get him in my building and I can make it work. Because one thing his record says he could put the ball away. That's the key. If he scored 5-6 goals for Forest and they were important goals, then it's worth it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work out that way, does it? Sometimes, and so I think Steve Cooper has done a really good job to handle the situation with all these players. I know it hasn't worked out for all.
How many of these players do you think are his players? How many do you think he's identified and said, "I want him"?
Like, probably about 5.
I would say 5 or 6. He really wanted Morgan Gibbs-White, and by all accounts, Forest fans tell me that actually he's done quite well. Yeah. I think the two lads he recruited from Huddersfield, O'Brien in particular in midfield, has been a good addition as well. That's a very Steve Cooper signing.
I think Bolly from Wolves.
Maybe Nico Williams potentially.
Yeah, Nico Williams.
Those type of players. You can see the Steve Cooper players, can't you, in the ones that have been brought to the club. Why would an owner then do that? Steve Cooper, again, good manager. We know his history of working with good young players from his time as an England youth manager as well. Why would an owner sort of go out of his way to bring in 23 players when a manager doesn't want 23 new players?
I'll tell you why. It's my money.
Ego.
It's my money, and this is what I do. Because you know what? Staying in the Premier League is going to be the biggest thing I can do for this football club. And I'm not going to leave it to chance. So I'm going to get all these players, and you're going to deal with it.
But you've got to build sensibly. I mean, what do Forest do with all these players if they do go down? You look at Bournemouth, for example, who came up with them, and I know their financial circumstances were different because the club were up for sale. They've now got a new owner. But I think you'll find the players that they sign this month, they're going to be people like Alex Scott at Bristol City, really exciting young player, wanted by about half a dozen clubs in the Premier League, a player that they feel they can develop and therefore he will have some kind of resale value as well. But if they go down, players like Alex Scott, if they do sign him, Marcus Tavernier, who they did sign from Middlesbrough last summer, they know they're ready-made for the Championship to come straight back up again next season. With Forest, it's going to be an absolute mess, isn't it, if they go down?
Yeah, this is what the Forest owner had to say when he spoke to Jonathan Percy in the Telegraph. He said, "It's very important to deliver what you say and promise, and I've done that throughout my life to achieve success. I'll continue to do it. You have to remember, it's 23 years since Forest were last in the top division. We will not rest as we want the club to be higher than it is now. They said we have too many players and that it would be difficult, but 5 of our key players last season were on loan. He mentions the player Jed Spence, James Garner, etc. So we had to replace them. You also need to buy players at Premier League level. So we had to add the quality in all areas. Has he bought players of Premier League quality? Some will say yes, in Morgan Gibbs-White and Jesse Lingard and Nico Williams. So he's ticked some boxes, right?
Yeah, he's ticked some boxes, definitely.
And I guess, look, on one hand, I think he's gone over the top. And he clearly has gone over the top. 23 players is ridiculous. But there'll be some that are saying, at least he's spending. He's a manager that's come up, and it's a gamble what he's doing. And it might backfire if they get relegated, right? Because you look at the wage bills, etc., etc. But surely he's come on and he's tried to at least give them a chance of staying in the league.
That's the thing. If Forest finished 17th, it's a job well done. He's done a good job as the owner. Making sure they stay up, because 23 years outside the top flight is a long time. I was in the team the last time they got promoted. So that tells you it's such a long spell. Look, Nottingham Forest, they do have to cut their cloth accordingly now. They do have to move and shake. They do have to get some players out, maybe to bring some players in. But I just think it's all part of the learning of the Premier League. I think Nottingham Forest now have started to understand what the Premier League's about. See the second half performance against Chelsea, they were a lot better. I think they've turned the corner now. They know what the Premier League's about. They don't have the quality to maybe go away from home and take on the better teams. But at home, their situation is going to be in their hands at home. Mm-hmm. If they get the points at home, they'll be all right. If they don't, then they're down.
They're still in there fighting, aren't they?
Yeah.
And maybe they'll benefit from the fact that we had the World Cup break. Therefore, they haven't played as many games at this stage of the season as they would have done in previous seasons. So there's still time to turn it around. They've got a huge game on Wednesday. Southampton away. I tell you what, Southampton fans already are not convinced by the appointment of Nathan Jones. If Forest were to go there and get an early goal, that could be a really horrible environment for the Southampton players. That game's live on talkSPORT 2 as well, by the way.
I love your plugs. Well done.